What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel, Morgan Allena True Crime and Mystery. Today I want to get into, I guess it's a documentary, I don't really know, but it was a different documentary about Gypsy Rose Blanchard that I haven't ever seen before, and it was titled, Will You Kill My Mother For Me? And it basically was pretty much how they all start out, giving information about Gypsy Rose. So I want to go through this and point out how many differences and discrepancies are in this little documentary versus the other ones, and some of the little details and facts that I found interesting and sometimes funny, because it was honestly like laughable, some of the information that they gave into this documentary, and go through that and point out a couple things with you guys. If you haven't seen it, I'll probably put a link down below in case you want to watch it. This documentary basically differs from all her other ones, and some new little details, I guess they're not new, but older details that don't quite match up with the newer ones that she's provided for everyone, and just give you a little bit of insight on how she continually changes her story. So before we get into this, I want to say please make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Please hit the subscribe button so you can help support me and my channel if you enjoy this video or other things about Gypsy Rose Blanchard's case. It really helps me out and I really appreciate it, so let's get into it. So I was actually planning on making this video yesterday, but we got like a couple snowflakes and my power was out pretty much off and on all day long, which was very, very annoying for me because, you know, as a parent, you have to have stuff going all the time, like the laundry or washing dishes, whatever. There's always something to do whenever you have kids or whatever, and I had to restart my dishwasher like 5 times and I ended up forgetting again until today. But yeah, so there was no power. My phone was at like 20% whenever I started. I was just like, not gonna happen. So that's why it's kind of taken a little bit of time to get a video out to you guys. But I watched a documentary episode and it was about Gypsy Rose Blanchard. And they kind of started this episode out as showing that Gypsy was basically a real life reenactment of the movie Tangled. I don't know if you guys have ever watched Disney's Tangled. I did. I actually went to theaters when I was in like high school to go watch this movie with my dad because we were only like allowed to watch certain movies. And I thought it was pretty interesting because I've never watched this episode before. I've never even watched this show, but I saw something about it. And obviously we know that Gypsy Rose Blanchard and her family members have been in a crap ton of documentaries, probably more than any other true crime family, honestly. Usually it's like 2 or 3 at most, but they've been in so many it's not even funny. But this one in particular, they were really comparing Gypsy's story to that of Rapunzel. And I have said this before in the past, before ever even saying this, that she literally did this in order to play a game with Nick in his mind, being that he is severely autistic and is intellectually disabled. He needs these kind of fantasy things to be able to believe in things, similar to that of a younger kid, because that's pretty much where he is at intellectually, about ages, 12 to 14 max. So he really lives in this fantasy world, and she used this story as a way to manipulate him into thinking that this was her only way out, which we obviously know that is not true. But I want to kind of go through this documentary and show you a little bit of information. Obviously I can't play the whole thing, but I'll go ahead and link it down for you guys so you can watch it on your own time. It's really funny. I thought it was like pretty wild what they had for the actor that was portraying Nick, totally complete opposite of what he actually was. But obviously it's not gonna fly with their narrative that they're trying to create in order to make Nick look like this bad boy coming to rescue Gypsy, who ended up being a crazy psycho who wanted to possess Gypsy and blah blah blah. I honestly think the way that the act on Hulu portrayed Nick did a much better job in the way that he can actually communicate. I mean, obviously, if you've ever watched any videos of Nicholas Godejohn, you can see that there's just something, his disability, but to portray that would make Gypsy look like she's in a different light, to show that she was talking to somebody that is intellectually disabled doesn't really go with the story of what the narrative they're trying to push. They want him to look like some mastermind, controlling, dark being when he's really just like the equivalent of a kid that watches too many video games or plays too many video games and lives in a fantasy world. Everybody has known those kids in school that are just like that. They're kind of different. And that's essentially who Nick was. And I want to say, obviously, when I'm going to be playing those clips, you might see videos of Fancy Maselli. She works with the Good Wives Network. She was in really, really close with the Blanchard family, and I don't know exactly what happened, but something happened, and she did a 180 and was like, okay, I can't support you anymore. There's like this whole backstory that I'm not going to get into whatsoever. I did reach out to Fancy and try to figure out, like, did she have the medical records at this point in time, because of what she was saying within the documentary clearly doesn't align with where her views are at today. And I'm 100% not against anybody changing their minds or getting new information and changing their views. I'm all for that, actually. Even if you want to change your mind and go support Gypsy, I don't care. Like, you're 100% free to do that. I will not lose 1 ounce of anything whatsoever if you choose to do that. Whatever. It's not a big deal that Fancy is in this docuseries prior to this and where she's at now. That's unimportant to me, but I do want to focus on what she's saying and how it kind of helped perpetuate the narrative that Gypsy Rose Blanchard had this horrible upbringing and had zero freedom, and that she watched Tangled for the first time and realized that was her life, except they were so close to actually figuring out the actual story of it, but missed the mark.
Missouri, a mother is found brutally murdered. Her chronically ill daughter, Gypsy Rose Blanchard, is missing.
Why? Why would somebody kill this wonderful mom? I was crying, oh my God, somebody killed Dee Dee.
Inspired by the Disney movie Tangled, this copycat crime reveals how dangerous a mother's love can ultimately be.
Gypsy watches Tangled. It's one of the only few movies that her mother will allow her to watch.
It was released in 2010 in theaters, so Gypsy probably watched it sometime around then. I want to say I was like maybe 8th or 9th grade whenever I saw this movie. I personally loved it. But essentially, this documentary is going over and saying how Gypsy just wanted to be free and that Nick was supposed to be her knight in shining armor, which, yeah, that is the premise of it, but the actual underlying plot of it was for Gypsy, Rapunzel, to get back to her family from which she was kidnapped by Mother Gothel. And if you remember when I went over Gypsy Rose Blanchard's book, I said that Gypsy was very, very jealous of the fact that Rod and Christy had their own entire family and left Gypsy basically in the dust, in the shadows, in the corner, doesn't matter. They left her alone, and she was jealous and very, very angry that Rod left Dee Dee and Gypsy to basically go start a new family and forget all about her. She didn't like that. That was her main thing. And so, yes, Gypsy does mention Tangled even within the text messages that she sent Nick before the murder of Dee Dee Blanchard. And I made this connection way before, but they were just so close into this documentary about really figuring it out, but they just didn't get there. Obviously, they were probably listening to the people that were telling them, oh yeah, Gypsy was just trapped and wanted to be free and wanted a boyfriend. No, it wasn't about that. She wanted to be with that family. She wanted to be with Christy and Mia and Rod. Mostly Rod. I don't think she really honestly cared too much about Christy or Mia, but, they had the family that she thought she deserved, which, that's not a wrong feeling. I don't want to get misconstrued and feel like that's incorrect of Gypsy to feel jealous about that, because it's really not. What is wrong is to trick and manipulate and work on an intellectually disabled individual for multiple years in order to convince them to kill your mother for you. That way you can escape and go live with that family. That's where you cross the line between right and wrong, okay? Clearly. This documentary basically starts off with saying that Gypsy watched Tangled, and it was one of the very few movies that Dee Dee actually allowed Gypsy to watch. And whenever she watched this, she began to realize that life was not as perfect and what she thought it really was. Okay, but first of all, yeah, Gypsy liked Disney movies, but she also got to watch Game of Thrones, Xena the Warrior Princess, which also had lesbian scenes in it. So, also True Blood, very, very raunchy HBO Max type of TV show. That would have been blocked on my TV. Growing up, literally Shrek, the movie, blocked for sexual content because they made those little innuendo jokes. Seriously, password. I still don't know the passcode to get into that TV today. And I'm 27 years old. So of course this little episode goes through the story pretty much how they all do, saying that Dee Dee was horrible, she lied and manipulated doctors since Gypsy was a baby, and Christy retells the same story about how Dee Dee would sleep with Gypsy as a baby on her chest in order to feel if she was breathing or not, which I mean, I don't really see that as such a big deal. I mean, a lot of people sleep with their babies on their chest just to feel them breathe and to feel their heartbeat. And sometimes babies just sleep better that way, you know, being close to mama. But I don't know why that's always such an important point, because you can't fake a sleep study. And they did do testing on Gypsy, and Gypsy's own grandfather was reported to have said, yeah, when Dee Dee would be living there and staying there, that thing would be going off and beeping in the night whenever Gypsy would stop breathing, and it would be scary. So obviously, as a newborn baby, Gypsy is not going to be knowing to pretend or how to fake, or Dee Dee wouldn't know how to fake a stopped breathing moment. You know, you really can't fake that kind of stuff. And sometimes, you know, they want to insinuate that it was just Dee Dee manipulating the doctors, but sometimes mothers really do know best, and they do know what was wrong with their child. Even when doctors don't believe you, there's so many stories of mothers that were trying to get help for their child, and they were completely dismissed or ignored until, then something does come back and is wrong, which, you know, shocker, something did come back wrong with Gypsy Rose. We all know that she has a chromosome genetic microdeletion 1q21.1. That's a fact. Every single thing and symptom that she had is what Dee Dee listed as an issue. That's a fact. There's zero possibility or chance that she would have been able to make that up the way that she did and hit every single symptom and presentation of this diagnosis the way that she did. Zero chance. I made a video about it. The statistics, not possible. Okay? And again, I want to push back on some of the things that Fancy did say throughout this, and it's not anything against Fancy in particular. Like, this was just who she was and where she was at with this family at that point. It has literally nothing to do with her viewpoints, and she'll acknowledge that herself. You know, she said that she came to the realization that things were not being portrayed correctly, so I'm going to put that forward. But basically in this series or episode, she said that basically the only thing that was actually wrong with Gypsy was a little lazy eye, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with a lazy eye. That's very, very true. There's absolutely nothing wrong with having a lazy eye as a child, unless it's such a severe lazy eye that it actually inhibits your vision and gives you problems with the quality of life that your child is receiving, which is where Gypsy's lazy eye actually fell, due to it being a symptom of her microdeletion. It's very, very common, and that's what she was diagnosed with, and that's why she had to have multiple surgeries on her eyes alone, because they were so severe. You can still tell to this day, and this is not a knock at her, you know, appearance or anything. It is just a scientific fact. And so although we know that Rod essentially said that he married Dee Dee because she got pregnant, we all pretty much know this. He said he wasn't in love with her, and that was just something that you had to do back in the day, which, true statement, you know, a good majority of the time you get somebody pregnant, you're gonna marry them. It's called shotgun wedding for a reason. And they ultimately ended up splitting and divorcing. And then Christy goes on to basically say that Dee Dee used Gypsy as a pawn in this little game that she used to punish Rod, and that he tried every single thing that he possibly could to see Dee Dee and Gypsy, but she wouldn't allow it. He wanted to be a part of Gypsy's life, and she put basically a block on every single attempt that he tried to make, which we obviously know that's not true anymore, because Rod actually did come out and say that, yeah, you know what, I was a little scared.
And I was busy working life. You know, we tried to make a trip when she was maybe 17, 18.
So you willfully did not participate in your daughter's life because you were working, and I get that. But sir, then you can't sit here and tell me that you lived it, because you didn't. You were offshore, and you have no idea what Dee Dee, nor Christy, nor Gypsy, nor any of the other family members were doing back home. You yourself have admitted that you never ever went to a doctor's appointment, not one time. You never questioned her. You never took her to court for anything except for the one time where you disputed some of the medical charges. I think she told you the truth, Rod, and I think you believed that because it was the truth. And I think now they are changing the narrative because it doesn't fit.
Fancy. She thought about killing her mom and get away from her. That's all the truth.
But why, Rod? Why? She started thinking about killing her mother all the way.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense. He probably was scared to take care of a medically fragile child. If Gypsy really did have all these issues, he might have been afraid to have to do it. And Christy, it not being her kid, she probably also didn't want to have to take care of a child that appeared to have like 24-hour care. And that's what Gypsy was absolutely used to having, was 24/7 care. She had absolutely zero ability to take care of herself in any way, from what she even says. So as far as like basic hygiene and stuff like that, Gypsy just said she wouldn't do it. Like brushing her hair, basic hygiene activities, she wouldn't do it. She never had to cook, never had to clean, never learned to grow up or do anything for herself, which she still kind of exhibits that behavior a little bit now. Still, she doesn't have a driver's license. She doesn't go out and do all of these things that she said she wanted to do but wasn't allowed to do because her mom forced her to not be able to do them. She still hasn't done any of those things that she claimed her mom wouldn't allow. So that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense now, does it? But what's really crazy to me is that all of these documentary filmmakers will go into these documentaries and make these shows or episodes or whatever, and I almost don't believe that they've even looked at the medical records themselves, and they're just going solely by what people are saying, and those people being Christy, Rod, and whoever is also working alongside Gypsy to make Gypsy look better. Like, how are you going to make a documentary and then not even see all of the information to know what you're actually saying and putting out into the world is true or not? So again, I always remind people, don't just believe a documentary just because you see it and it makes you feel sad or it pulls at your heartstrings a little bit. That's their goal. Their goal is to get you to feel something, whether it be 100% true or not.
Got a lot of Make-A-Wish things, so she got to go to Disney and see all of that stuff and get trips to Disney. She got trips on cruises.
Angel Flight, Hope Lodge, Miranda Lambert. They met her at a concert, and she got backstage passes. She got to sit down with the whole Harry Potter crew and have dinner.
Habitat for Humanity got on board, and they built a new house in Springfield, Missouri.
Dee Dee becomes her daughter's spokesperson.
It's so easy to live here, and it's so peaceful.
They had everything they needed to make life easier for this sick girl.
Happy endings are not just in fairy tales, they're real and true.
They say that Dee Dee begins to realize that with Gypsy being sick, it came up with a lot of secondary benefits, which I really think those were actually the primary benefits and the sole reason that Gypsy even had to, portray as a super sick kid. And I think Gypsy was well aware of the benefits that she received. So Christy in this little episode can be seen saying that Gypsy got to go on cruises to Disney World, to Miranda Lambert. Obviously, we know she met with the entire Harry Potter cast. She got to go to Disney World multiple times. They received a free house, a free car. They received a lot of stuff, and yet Gypsy always claims that she had zero idea that she was the reason why they got any of that stuff. I don't know how you could get that stuff and be having cameras in your face and talking to you about what's going on and how you feel and are you happy, blah, 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 and then not realize that that's the reason you're getting these things. That just seems illogical to me, but she still wants to portray that completely innocent type of, I had no idea what my mother was doing. All I knew was that I just wanted to be free type of thing, when it's just completely illogical. And by them basing this entire story and seeing how it parallels to the movie Tangled and making Gypsy just look like poor little Rapunzel locked away in the tower, yeah, that's not a good look. And it totally makes sense why she would have Nick come and save her from the Mother Gothel of the story. But they were just so close, but they totally missed it. Yeah, Gypsy manipulated this situation and manipulated Nick into believing that was her situation. So in the episode, they go on to talk about how Gypsy and Nick originally met, and the plan was for them to meet at the Cinderella, although in this episode, they say that it was supposed to be at an intermission in the movie, which I don't know if they had an intermission or not at the live-action Cinderella, which we obviously know that that is not actually true, because if you go back and read messages that Nick sent, it was showing that Gypsy was trying to get Nick to unalive his mother much sooner, way before that plan to even meet actually ever even occurred. She was trying to get Nicholas to kill her mom before any of it. That was the original plan, and then they decided, well, maybe we'll try it this way first. And I also want to bring up another point, that the fact that Gypsy wasn't trapped, because in those same messages brings up the fact that Gypsy was told to get out of the house by Dee Dee, but she did not pack her stuff in time, and that's why she was able to stay. So again, that kind of really points to how unable Nick was to connect the dots in the situation to see like, oh, She could actually get out, but she was just so good at manipulating Nick. And again, this was multiple years worth of essentially brainwashing Nick into thinking that Dee Dee was a monster. And you can even hear Nicholas Godejohn in his police interrogation that he said he felt even worse after he killed Dee Dee Blanchard, that Gypsy started saying all this stuff about her mom and it wasn't really all that bad. He found out that she was actually kind of a good mom, which he was battling it a lot back and forth before the murder even took place, and he was really trying to reason with Gypsy, saying, isn't there another way? But she really forced him into believing that there was absolutely no other way. So the whole entire story about Nick showing up in the intermission of the movie to meet Gypsy and her mom in the theater and just pretend as if she's, you know, a girl watching a movie who meets a random guy and thinking that Dee Dee would be okay with it. One, that's a stupid plan. That is a horrible, stupid plan. I don't know why she would even do that. But again, we know that's not true because you can see in this article magazine that I'm going to show you real quick that Dee Dee was absolutely aware about Nick and Gypsy's relationship. She was happy for them. She was so excited that they were in love and that she'd found somebody that loved her. And there was even some, I'll have to go back and dig and find this to add it in here, but basically Nick was supposed to get Dee Dee some flowers sent to the house after the whole movie thing happened, which Nick did end up saying that something went wrong during the movie and Gypsy was upset. He didn't say that Dee Dee was upset. Did you guys catch that in his police interrogation whenever he was discussing the first time that they actually met at the movie theater, that it was Gypsy that was upset and it wasn't Dee Dee? And I think it's very important whenever you're listening to anything that Nick is saying, he's not able to manipulate in the way that a lot of other people are when they're trying to manipulate somebody. So he'll say things and he'll really say them straightforward, because that's what autistic people do a lot of the time. They'll say things just very straightforward because they're not able to recognize certain emotional cues, I guess I should say. Even in one of the main stories that Gypsy has been known to tell about how she wanted to run away with Dan, and this is why people get confused all the time, is because Gypsy changed her story halfway through the years whenever she was telling the story, and it's clear by this episode that they originally said that Gypsy was at a convention with the person and then snuck into the hotel to meet Dan. And Dee Dee was like, where did Gypsy go? Which, I mean, if Dee Dee was 24/7 with Gypsy and never let her out of her sight, how did Gypsy manage to sneak off? But whatever. So apparently, according to this episode, Gypsy snuck off into the hotel room and met with Dan, was hanging out. And Dee Dee went in there and was banging on the door. And then at that point, that was whenever Dee Dee took Gypsy home, smashed the laptop, and beat Gypsy and chained her to the bed for 2 weeks. And starved her and blah, blah, blah. But then if you go back to the other documentaries or even her own book, she states it was a completely different time, and it was when Gypsy ran away to go meet Dan. She basically knocked on a neighbor's door and was like, hey, I need a ride to go meet my friend. And they ended up going home because I guess Gypsy was under the impression that they were going to run away together, even though he said no, that's not the plan at all. And there's been various versions, one of which where Gypsy says she left a note for Dee Dee saying, you know, I love you, I'm sorry, I have to go be free and be on my own. And then another version where she basically says that she left her cell phone behind by accident, which obviously, I don't know. In the book version, she says that she stole money and she stole pills from Dee Dee, which were Dee Dee's prescription medication, because she had chronic pain due to a car wreck that literally almost severed her leg, and she dealt with chronic pain for the entirety of her life following that accident. So Gypsy stole the pain medicine because apparently she believed that Dan, because he had former drug charges for weed, that he was maybe into drugs, or maybe to appear cooler than what she was. I don't really know, but at that point, she says Dee Dee showed up at the house after a friend of Dan's called her and convinced Gypsy to come back home and that she would let her be with Dan. And one thing led to another, and then they got home, and then she smashed the laptop, and then she was chained to the bed. So there's 4 or 5 different variations of this story. So I mean, if you're not going to stick to what the story actually is and what you're telling people, one can only assume that you're being dishonest about it.
About killing her mother all the way back to 2011, sir, when she shot her with a BB gun 10 times.
Yeah, because she wanted to get away from her, man.
For what reason, Rod? Why didn't she just leave? She was in 2011. She was over the age of 18. Why didn't she call you? Why didn't she just leave, Rod? She knew.
I don't know. I can't. She didn't leave. She was probably scared shitless to get caught again, Fancy.
Rod, no, the cops never brought her home. Do you understand that? The cops have never been called to bring her home. She willfully walked out of Dan's roommate's house and went home with your wife because with your ex-wife, because your ex-wife told her that she wanted the drugs that she stole, the money that she stole, and she told her if she returned home with her, she would go ahead and allow her to have the relationship with Dan.
This is one that she always brings up, even if she is off about the actual details of it every single time. If you're bringing it up, it has to be true, and the truth doesn't change. You may forget little details here and there, but the entirety of the story, like the person, place, and location, doesn't really change. Which Christy in this episode says that she found out later on that Dee Dee had smashed a laptop, but she says that Dee Dee had called Rod and was like, hey, Gypsy needs a new laptop, and Rod would send a laptop over. Which obviously we know in the text messages between Gypsy Rose and Nick Godejohn that Gypsy smashed her own laptop herself, but according to the book, Gypsy was under the assumption that she had got a laptop from like a cancer society as a gift. I don't really know, but either way, I don't know why, if Dee Dee was so overwhelmingly controlling, why she would gift Gypsy another laptop multiple times. According to Christy, that doesn't make any sense. But according to Gypsy, she was sneaking onto her mother's laptop in between times whenever Dee Dee was sleeping. So that still just doesn't make any sense, and there's a lot of holes in this story. At one point in this episode, Christy was saying that Gypsy had told her whenever, I guess, the whole movie situation occurred, that Dee Dee was saying that nobody wants to be with you, Gypsy, because you're essentially, she made her feel like she was a burden. Nobody's going to want to take care of you like I would. And I can't help but wonder if maybe that did happen, maybe it didn't. I do think Gypsy did require a lot of care because, I mean, she was essentially not doing anything in the house. She never stepped up to take any responsibility whatsoever over her life. And she still kind of doesn't. I mean, it's been said that Rod had to call and tell Gypsy to clean her room as a grown woman who's spent 10 years in prison just about. Well, I guess not really because she got out early for good behavior. But still being told to clean your room as a grown woman is a little bit absurd to me. So I think that burden comment actually comes from what Christy felt and what Rod felt and what Mia felt. Because at the end of the episode, Mia says something that I find very, very telling. And let's look at that really quick and let's get into that.
Oh my God, they took her and they're gonna leave her for dead.
First thing I thought of was like, what are we gonna do? Who's gonna take care of her? Nobody knows all her medicine she has to take, all her surgeries. Nobody knows that except Dee Dee.
A manhunt.
Mia's first thought whenever she found out that Dee Dee was dead and Gypsy was missing was, oh shit, who is gonna take care of Gypsy? Nobody knows how to take care of Gypsy. She needs too much. Like, we don't know how to take care of her medicines, what she needs. Like, what? Concern about that immediately just shows how they viewed Gypsy to be a burden. And I've said this before, I know that they felt that way because, again, having a chronically sick child is not for the weak. It really, really isn't. And there are some people that are just not cut out for it. I mean, a lot of parents, I think, assume they're not cut out for it, but then they eventually have to become that way. But I think according to them, they did not want to mess with having to deal with Gypsy's issues. And I think Gypsy made sure that they were aware that she was sick so that way she would get more and more attention because that's what she craved. She needed that attention, so I think she felt as when she was younger, the sicker she was, the more attention she would get from Rod. But as she got older and not better, I think she started to pick up on that and the fact that Rod really didn't think she was going to make it. And that's why he was maybe spending time with her. And so once he realized, like, yeah, she's probably going to keep on keeping on, he didn't really need to be there as much anymore, and he didn't want to have to deal with a delayed child. And I don't say that to be cruel or anything, I just say that as it's what it appears to be. And I mean, it's a common feeling, I feel like. A lot of people actually feel like that, and a lot of people who have had kids like that, they left. So it's not unique to just them. There are a lot of people that have done that. Does it make it right? No. but it is something that happens. And they go on basically to talk about how the last night that Dee Dee was alive, Gypsy made sure to make it really special for her mother, which I think that really gives a little bit of insight into who Gypsy really is, making her mother think that it was a normal night and just a typical girls' night, painting their nails together, watching TV, watching their favorite show, when she fully knew that within a few hours she'd be having Nick kill her mom. That takes a different level of ability to play it cool and act like you love your mother, to paint your nails and have a girly night like everything's normal, like you're best friends, and then to literally stab her in the back. Literally. But of course, this episode wants to make it seem like Gypsy just felt like she had no other choice. I don't know of any other situation that would make any sense, that she's just sitting there having a girly night, having the best of time, having fun with her mama, and then still had to kill her as the only option. That just doesn't seem logical. And we all know that Gypsy didn't attempt to run away. She never attempted to grab the keys and drive away. And she claimed, according to this and what Christy said, that she mailed the knife to Nick's house because she was concerned about there being metal detectors on the bus, which we probably can assume that that's not true because Gypsy had a bus pass well before this situation ever occurred. She was well aware of how the bus station worked, and she did it to set Nick up. Same with posting on Facebook, which was mentioned in this episode. She said that Nick told her what to write because she wanted the mother found, but if you listen to Nick during his interrogation, he had literally zero idea what Gypsy was doing or what she was posting until it was already done. Which you can see that because clearly Gypsy makes this post on Facebook and makes it about her and makes her look like a victim and makes people worried about Gypsy. Clearly, she makes Gypsy the focus, not her mom. She wanted people to know that Gypsy was still out there and missing. She wanted to stir up a reaction about herself. And whenever Gypsy posted those Facebook posts, they said that the police had busted in the house and Nick jumped up, and it was during family dinner, which I don't believe that's actually true. I'm pretty positive Gypsy had said in the past that the police busted in and it was in the morning, they were in bed, and then they went to hide in the closet. So I don't know where this story came from, but the way that they portrayed it and the guy that they had playing Nick is just, I actually laughed out loud because what are they doing? But they said that Nick basically jumped up and was freaking out, trying to make him to where they couldn't take Gypsy, which we all know that Gypsy was like, I'm going to get you an attorney. According to herself in her book, she told Nick that she was going to use the money to buy him an attorney. She clearly didn't think that she was going to be in trouble whatsoever. She knew Nick was. She made sure of that. But she was pretty sure that she was just going to go free, and she wanted to make sure Nick knew that she was going to get him the best attorney with the $4,000 that she stole from the safe, which was, newsflash, in the mother's bedroom, although Gypsy claims she didn't see her mother's body whatsoever. 100% not true. They said that she got the money out of the safe, and the safe is in the bedroom. But they said that Nick grabbed Gypsy and was refusing to let him go, and there was a standoff with a knife, and he was freaking out. Like, I wanted to laugh. It was a joke. Trying to make this story look much worse when it was really them hiding in the closet, concocting a story about what they're gonna say and how they're gonna say it. So where did this even come from? I don't freaking know, but I thought it was kind of funny, honestly. Just anything to make Nicholas Godejohn look like more of a psycho, maniac, horrible person that just was ready to jump up and kill anybody at any moment's notice. He said some strange things. I'm not going to pretend that he doesn't have some issues, because he clearly does. I'm not going to pretend that whatsoever. I'm not going to pretend like he's just some innocent little lamb that wasn't completely going to kill Gypsy's mom. Like, that's just not true. That's reckless to pretend and, like, claim that he wasn't going to do that. You can't pretend that he wasn't, capable of such, because he did do it. But that also goes to show with where his mental health is at. And Gypsy made sure that his mental health and his state was going to be in that way because she worked on him for years. That's just the facts. She encouraged that. She helped warp his mind. As much as he tried to fight it, she continued to push that onto him and make him really feel like that was the only way, and to become this character of himself and really encourage that darkness within him that he thought was there, that he tried to, keep hidden away. She wanted to bring that to the forefront and make him look like a true villain and her like an innocent victim, when that's really not the case. The way that Gypsy describes herself as Ruby, who likes to rape and rob and steal and kill unless it's a family member, that's who she is, truly. And the way that they perpetuate this misinformation and not telling the accurate stories, well, I mean, I don't know what they were told in the beginning, like Dee and Rod and Mia, what they were actually told or what they believed, or if they feel confused now whenever they take a step back and look, or if they even want to do that. They probably don't, because the money's good enough to just be like, I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that or didn't ever say that. But you know, they do change their stories. They perpetuate misinformation in order to make Gypsy look as if she's the victim. Like she truly was Princess Rapunzel, locked in the tower by Mother Gothel, and she was destined to be with her real family, which Gypsy ended up getting what Gypsy wanted and planned. She is the ultimate con. I'm sure she, you know, surpassed her own mother in the way that she tries to make her mother look as such a horrible person for getting Gypsy 1,000,000 trips to Disney. She surpassed her. She killed her mother and she got away with it. And she doesn't want to be branded a murderer for the rest of her life, which is pretty intense, you know, thinking that she just doesn't deserve to have to deal with that for the rest of her life whenever she's never been apologetic or remorseful about it since the beginning, since it happened. She has to maintain this narrative of being a victim, because if you really take a look of what the information shows and what the proof shows, it doesn't show that. It shows she's 100% complicit and she 100% initiated every single step of everything that happened. Period. Every single documentary has been based on lies out of her own mouth. She is the ultimate con, for real. And she still gets away with it. She still has supporters coming up and saying, I'm so proud of you. I don't know why people hate you. It's not about hating her. I don't even hate her. But I just feel like she should not continue to get away without having any sort of repercussions and getting a gentle little slap on the wrist and then getting to move along with her life and perpetuating a lie and even adding to it. I don't think that's right, and I think it's wrong, and I think it doesn't teach anybody anything. It just teaches you that you can do whatever you want and get away with it as long as you have a good enough story to back it up. And you make sure that there's nobody there to contradict it. But I'm going to put the link down below to this episode, and I want you guys to watch it and tell me what you guys think about this. Obviously, I played parts of it, or if you don't want to go watch it, you know, just let me know what you guys think about this video in general and what you think about these little details that they provided in this episode compared to what they've said even more recently, and how the stories have changed between then and now. Let me know what you guys think. As always, thank you guys for watching my videos and for supporting my channel. Please give this video a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button if you are not already. I really appreciate each of you guys. And if you want me to touch on something else, I'm always taking suggestions and always willing to go research some other avenues and options. So let me know what you guys think. I will see you guys next time. Bye.